As we rest in the spiral arms of the Milky Way, a thumbnail sketch, a drop of rain, a sack of cells, the stream of time inside the rain. The size of things is hard to comprehend. We follow spring into summer, summer to fall again. A bit of bone, a lock of hair, a little carbon and water, only a moment here. I kiss your hand, you touch my face. The moon slips in through the window, heaven and earth embrace. We kiss goodnight, and there goes another day. As we rest in the spiral arms of the Milky Way. As we rest in the spiral arms of the Milky Way.
Thanks to Michael for the introduction. And thanks to Cassie for the invitation to speak tonight. And thanks to Gallery Sir and Rohan and David for organizing all this. And thanks to all you for coming in. I really appreciate it. As Michael mentioned, tonight Jewel and I are going to discuss and demonstrate this fundamental connection between art and science. We're going to do that with my images and with Jewel's music. Now, as you heard, Jewel's an astrophysicist. She understands the complex physical phenomena of the universe, mostly mathematical. But for us, she's also an artist, and she's going to take that understanding and make it more accessible, maybe more impactful for us, so we can also feel like we're part of it as well. The song she just sang, Spiral Arms, I think it reminds us of our place in the Milky Way galaxy. We're on a planet that's orbiting a single star among probably between 200 and 400 billion stars that make up the Milky Way. What you see in this image, that's what we call the Milky Way, right? But what we're looking at, the Milky Way galaxy, like a lot of galaxies, is a disk of 400 billion stars. And we're in one of the stars, circling one of the stars, our sun. If we looked up or down through the disk, we would see a lot of stars. But if we look across the disk, it gets a lot denser. And that's what we call the Milky Way in the night sky. That's what we're looking at. We're looking across, and you recognize this is Bixby, right? And if you guys went out there tonight, and it was clear, you'd see this around 11 o'clock tonight. That's the core of the Milky Way. You're looking at the center of the Milky Way. It's up tonight. I shot this picture last year. So, a lot of these images, they're kind of remarkable, aren't they? And you probably remember seeing them maybe in the 90s when Hubble started putting them out, and only a few years ago, people like me could start making them. But it seems like a fairly recent phenomenon to be able to make pictures like this of the cosmos. Because it turns out, this is Cassie, we're going to talk a little science. It turns out it's this kind of photography of the night sky has been going on actually a long time. It's actually one of the oldest kinds of photography. You go back 1840, can you see this? This is a picture of the moon taken by John Draper. Draper was a MD, and back then in 1839, there was a new kind of photography invented called daguerreotype. It's a polished copper plate. You put a photoactive emulsion on it, and you expose it directly to the light. And that's what he did. He exposed a daguerreotype plate to the end of his telescope and got this picture of the moon. This is the first astrophotograph. almost 200 years ago. It was one of the very first photographs, for that matter. So this has been going on a long time, and we're going to now follow this forward a bit. We're going to go back 40 more years. 1880. In 1880, that is Henry Draper. That's John's son, another MD who got into this early because his dad did it. And he was a really avid amateur astronomer. You're looking at him standing in his observatory. He built that telescope, and on the end, you see a big box. That's a box camera of his own design. It was the state of the art. He used glass plates with emulsion on them to take photographs. A lot more sensitive, but still not that sensitive. So he took the very first picture of a nebula, a cloud of gas and dust up in space. It's very dim, so you need a really long exposure to see it. And you can see it's not very good because, you know, what's going on? Well, our Earth is turning. The sky is moving, a long exposure gets smeared. But nonetheless, there it is, 1880, a long time ago. So we're still not to a place where we're thinking about making art, right? Let's go another 40 years forward. Now things have gotten a lot more sophisticated. The instrument you see in the center is the Hooker telescope. It's 100 tons. The primary mirror is 100 inches across. This is the biggest telescope on the planet from 1917 when it was built to almost 1950. It's down in Mount Wilson in Southern California. The man on the right there is Edwin Hubble, you know, from Hubble telescope fame. Wow. Edwin Hubble was a really notable astrophysicist even then, and still is obviously today. With this equipment, he took this picture. This is a picture of the Andromeda galaxy, one of the close galaxies to us. And it's with this picture and a lot of other data he collected that he was able to propose that we're not the only galaxy in the universe. We're one of billions. And it completely changed the way we think about, astronomers thought about things, but all of us think about things. This is a big deal. So now it's 1923. He's shooting celluloid film, right? That's what was popular back then, a lot more sensitive. And pretty good resolution, but still I'm not seeing art. Right? And plus, this is pretty, I don't, you know, Hooker telescope, who's going to get time on that? So you don't have a lot to work with here. So the real stat took another 70 years. And I bet you remember this. A lot of us are around for this. This is a picture from the Hubble Space Telescope. This was one of the first ones released, The Pillars of Creation. It's spectacular, it's just so dramatic. It shows a star chamber in the Eagle Nebula. So two big steps forward happen in the technology. First, you have a telescope orbiting the planet, so you're not taking a picture through that big bunch of atmosphere, right? That makes things a lot better. And that's a big telescope, by the way. It's almost as big as the Hooker. It's like got a mirror that's almost 90 inches. But the other big deal is you're orbiting, the telescope orbiting, you can't run up there and change the film, right? So you got to do something else. And so one of the very first digital cameras that was very capable was on board this. It's called a CCD camera, charge coupled device camera. Very capable one, and some great filters. And look, it made an image like this, just remarkable. Just absolutely remarkable. So I, like a lot of people, was just absolutely stunned by this image. It was, as a filmmaker too, so I have a filmmaking background, so I'm making films about this time. I'm thinking, man, if I can get images like this, we can tell some amazing stories. But this is pretty exotic stuff. And it wasn't ready. Folks like me aren't going to get access to it yet. But as it turns out, this was my first interest in astrophotography. I've been thinking about this a long time. This is my first astrophotograph right there. So that's a picture of the moon, if you can't tell what that is. This is 1963. Do the math, I was 12. And it was my first telescope. I was just so jazzed. I drug it out to the street corner, and I remember seeing the crater of the moon the first time. Rings around Saturn, it was like so exciting. And I really wanted to share it with everybody. So I made a camera out of a shoebox. And I fixed it to my telescope and took this picture and got it down to the Rexall drugstore to get it developed. And this got back. I was so excited, except it was smeared. So me and Henry Draper and I had the same problem. We couldn't track the sky, and so it got smeared. But nonetheless, there we go, right? So move fast forward another, what do we have, 30 years here. At this point, so I've been in the media business and in the film business, and I sold my company. And so what did I do with my money? Well, I didn't get a Ferrari. I got the biggest telescope I could carry up to my here in Tahoe, and I bought the first commercially available CCD camera. It wasn't as capable as the one on the Hubble, but well, you know, it was not bad. And so, and I began just blasting away, and I could take really cool, I could see these really faint things in space, these nebulae, but they were, it was black and white, and it was really low resolution. It was 1993, 1994. If you wanted to take a beautiful picture, you still were shooting film. So who remembers Comet Hyakutake, anybody? Yeah, it was a beautiful blue-green streak across the sky for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And I was in Tahoe, so it was beautiful dark nights. I took this with film. Wow. And it's not bad, right? But it's not giving us a lot to work with regard to artistic interpretation, basically just recording it. So the next big step forward happened 20 years later, because now the tech that's being used by Hubble becomes more broadly available. So now I'm going to run forward to about 2015. That camera tech had actually improved since Hubble. And the filter technology that they use was now available generally. So I jumped in with both feet. My wife Monica agreed to allow me to build an observatory in our backyard. And it's right here, about 5 miles from here, just at the base of Jack's Peak is where we live. And that's my observatory. You see this big white mount. It's sitting in a big block of concrete under the deck. And the black thing is the motorized mount that's tracking the sky. Big telescope. That red cylinder is the camera. And there's some real technology there, because it's not only, it's got a very sensitive, it's got a sensor that really picks up a lot of light, but it's also cool. I can keep it at negative 15 degrees centigrade, meaning that I can do really long exposures and things don't heat up and mess up the image. But the real money is in that black cylinder in front. There are filters there that allow only a particular wavelength of light through, just 3 nanometers within the visible spectrum. So I can take pictures of each of the elements in the objects I'm shooting individually. It gives me tremendous creative control when I'm making images, right? So for the next number of years, I began exploring this as a fine art. So at this point, you've got to ask yourself, so Gary, how do you make one of these pictures? And so I'm going to go through it. It won't take about 4 hours. You guys have time? So I ended up distilling this into a 4-minute video, which I'm going to play for you. I don't have the audio, Arianna, so I'm hoping this is okay. Let's see. Just hoping the sound is right. Very loud.
When the sun goes down, the sky becomes a sea of stars. Mixed among the stars are patches of soft light that are so faint they're nearly invisible to our unaided eyes. This light is the glow of gases that accumulate in great billowing clouds called nebulae. They are the nurseries of new stars, and the remnants of stars that no longer shine. This faint light is ancient and tells the stories of our galaxy. To visualize this ancient light requires a special type of photography called astrophotography. I'm Gary Lopez, and this is my observatory in Monterey, California. Astrophotography takes specialized equipment, including a telescope, an electronically cooled camera that can take very long exposures, and a precision mount that tracks the stars as they move across the sky. With changing sky conditions, it can take days, weeks, sometimes years to gather the needed exposures to make an image. I take hundreds of faint, fuzzy single exposures and stack them, one over another, to build an image with detail and depth. I collect the light of each glowing gas individually. This is the light of glowing hydrogen gas. This is the light from oxygen. And this is the light from glowing sulfur. I assign each gas a color. Oxygen is blue, and sulfur is red, the basic colors at which they naturally glow. Hydrogen is assigned green to create a palette that includes the full spectrum of colors. Bringing them all together, the nebula appears. My goal in making astrophotographs is to create images that are beautiful and dramatic. I spent a lot of time experimenting with printing techniques and materials, striving to find approaches that capture the emotional impact of my images. People viewing my images often tell me they are struck with a sense of familiarity, a connection they can feel but they can't explain. Since most of the atoms that make up our bodies were created in the fires of the stars, I've wondered if the feeling of connection is somehow an innate association with these places. Because like the planets and the stars, we are part of the universe. Perhaps my images are familiar because they are pictures of home.
So, this is the image you saw me make in that video. And to recap what you're looking at, this is a nebula. A nebula is a cloud of gas and dust in space. It's brought together by gravity. It includes a variety of different gases that glow different colors, really faintly. So the reds and oranges you see in this image, and that, go forward. And that image is glowing sulfur and hydrogen gas, whereas the blue-green is glowing oxygen gas. All the blue dots you see in there are relatively recently ignited stars, young stars, and the orange dots are older stars. You see a lot of stars in there because nebula here in our galaxy and everywhere are the place where stars are made. They're created in nebula. That's why that's one of the reasons they're important. The other thing to know about this is how old the light is. This light is 2,600 years old. This nebula is 2,600 light years away, meaning it took 2,600 years for the light, when it was created, to reach my camera. So when the Greeks were beginning to decorate pottery, that's when this light was created. And so you're kind of looking back in time, right? But additionally, it's big. So if we were in a rocket ship traveling at the speed of light, which is fast, we're going to from here and go to the top of that image and take about 100 years. So you're looking at this enormous place. Now tonight, this thing's up actually. Tonight, and about 45 degrees up at about 1 o'clock at night, the nebula is coming by in the sky here in Monterey. The other thing I wanted to talk about is how about the art side of this? When this started to come together for me, I began taking the images, rather the exposure for this image, and I had a composition in mind. But astrophotography is unusual in so much as you can plan all you want, but the sky and the conditions really dictate what you're going to get. And my composition moved as this started to come together. And I saw this as I thought had a good, I like the balance, I like the movements, where there's a narrative flow to this that I like. But the big deal for me was here in the center. That blue-green, as it started to come across, had an almost aqueous, liquid-like appearance to me. So I made a lot of underwater films in my life, and so I sort of dove into that. I really mean to make and so I began really moving in that direction as I processed that. I wanted it to have that look. What I had envisioned as this came together was almost like a tropical sea kind of floating in the stars. And I saw these ridges, almost like seamounts or islands, coming up from the bed and breaking, cresting the surface. I found this really serene. I like this image a lot for that, the serenity and tranquility of it. A lot of people feel that way.
What's the right with an eyeball?
That's a big star.
It's just a big.
That's a big star. Yeah, it's in the foreground. Yeah.
Like Bruno Mars?
Very much like Bruno Mars. Very much like Bruno Mars.
Gary, question. So how do you keep track of the separate gases? How
Yeah.
do you keep track of the separate gases so you're assigning the right color to the right gas, or are you just kind of
No.
you're doing that?
No, Rick, not really. This is just like your thing, Rick. I do keep track of the weather.
How do you do that?
It turns out when I take an exposure, I'm using a filter that only allows one gas through.
Oh, you did say that.
Yeah. So I can keep track of my exposures, just the hydrogen exposures, the sulfur exposures. Yeah, and that makes sense accordingly. So as I said, for the last 8 years, I've been exploring this as a fine art. This is my artistic interpretation of this place. Jewel also looked at this image, and I'm going to hand it to her to talk about her artistic interpretation.
Thank you so much, Gary. So, as Gary mentioned, some of the first photographs that were ever created had astronomical objects as their subjects. And similarly, some of the first songs ever known to mankind, at least that we know of or have record of, were of cosmic imagery and cosmic themes. So, the oldest book of hymns in existence is the Rig Veda, a sacred text in Hinduism that was passed down orally for thousands of years and is full of cosmological symbolism and these philosophical musings on our place in creation. And so many thousands of years passed during which these were being passed down orally that those hymns are actually older than the light you're seeing in that image. The Rig Veda is tentatively dated to be 3,500 years old. And what that means is the photons that you're looking at in that image, when they first began their journey across space and time to reach the telescope lens of Gary Lopez on planet Earth in 2020, these sentiments and these words were being sung by humans somewhere in India continually throughout that entire journey. So for this next song, I rearranged the words of the English translation of the Rig Vedic hymn of creation, the Nasadiya Sukta. And hopefully, while you are looking back in time with Gary's beautiful images, this will give you the experience of listening back in time as well.
Perhaps it formed itself, perhaps did not. This web of time was all pervading. There was neither day or night back then, neither the realm of space nor sky beyond it. What stirred where and at whose command? There was neither non-existence nor existence then. A windless breath stirred the depths deep in the heart of the night. Ever pervading spirit creating a tapestry woven of night. Forgot to mention that, yes. Very sorry.
Thank you. So let's move forward on the images here. This is a flaming star nebula. It's a nebula much like the one you saw, but you can see it's very different, isn't it? When I saw this, I found it to be more frenetic, energetic, chaotic almost. And as I began putting the image together, I thought, this is pretty early on as I was doing this. I thought this might be a chance for me to really try to apply some of the fine art photography techniques to astrophotography. This might be a good candidate for that. Because think about this. Fine art photography has been around for at least 100 years. And yet, the ability to apply it here has only been about a decade. I mean, NASA did it, but they're not doing it for that purpose. Having artists really jump into it has only been about a decade. So almost everything I tried, never had tried it before. In this image, for me, what was particularly, see it's there and it's over there as well, was impactful was that star. That's a big, new blue star. It's full of energy. The blue color you see in that image is the light of that star reflecting off to the surrounding dust. And so I wanted that to be the center of attention. That's the story here. That's the narrative, right? The relationship between this star and its surroundings. So what I did was I found a way to remove the other stars in this image. I had this neural net software I was able to adapt to kick all the stars out. So I didn't mess up the image, but kept that. But I did a couple other things too. I wanted that roiling, folding texture to really become more three-dimensional, which is really hard to do with astrophotography. There's no three-dimensionality. And so what I did was I applied a steep tonal range. The gold color you see is a blend of hydrogen and sulfur gas, makes this beautiful gold. And so what I did was I applied it in a manner in which it almost goes from light to really dark gold. And the result is it has this depth to it. It seems more deep than it really is to the way we look at things. But I did one more thing. Everybody's seen a close-up photograph of an insect or a flower, macro photograph, yeah? And you know how the flower is in perfect focus, but everything in the background is kind of kicked out of focus? That's called the bokeh effect. And it makes us think things are deeper than they are. It's just how our brain works. You can't do a bokeh effect with space imagery. There's no depth of field. The camera can only see a portion of the scene in focus. Everything in the foreground and the background is out of focus. There's nothing out of focus here. So I actually created a bokeh effect by making a soft focus mask for the perimeter of this image. And you can see behind Jewel, it gives you the impression that it's coming out of the wall, which is the intention, because it also gives it more movement. What's been interesting is to see people's reaction to this, because it goes from a sense of, people have a sense of almost frenetic chaos to almost a spiritual response to it. I've seen everything. And I think that's what we're going to keep coming back to thematically here. People have emotional responses to this, not necessarily the same one. It's not necessarily the one I intended, but it moves people in a certain direction. It kind of comes back to your background, I think. Here's another one. This is the one you see on the wall over there. This is another nebula, but it's different, isn't it? It doesn't look like what I showed you. That's because this is the remnant of a star that exploded 40,000 years ago. For some stars, well, all stars, when they use up all of their fuel, which is hydrogen, it's all been fused, eventually gravity has the core collapse violently, and sometimes they explode, depending on their size, in an event called a supernova. It's one of the most energetic events in the universe. And this is the remnant of a star that exploded. It created a sphere of material, and what you're looking at is glowing hydrogen gas, almost a plasma. And it's super dim, but so you can see this tonight if you have really good eyes, because it's up in the northern sky about 10 o'clock at night, and it's going to cover a space bigger than 6 full moons. It's been there your whole life. Every summer, and you've never seen it because it's so dim, but it's always been decorating the sky. It's just, you can't perceive it. So this required tens and tens of hours of exposures to gather those photons to make this image. But look what was there. Look at this beautiful lattice work. It's just so spectacular. So as I began putting this image together, I kind of got moved to a point where I was disenchanted with this little monochromatic aspects. It was just too much red for me. And it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And then I remembered the work of another artist, Winslow Homer. Everybody know Winslow Homer's work? Homer was a painter, acrylic, an American painter. You probably know his acrylic, his oils. But in 1888 to about 1900, he lived in the Bahamas. And he has a whole series of remarkable watercolors from those times. You can see them at the Chicago Art Institute 2000. They're really beautiful. And then, needless to say, they're dominated by turquoise and blue and sand colors because they're the Bahamas, right? But Homer did something in a number of the images that I never forgot, and that was he put a little spot of warm color somewhere. Sometimes it's an object. In the case of this one is called the palm trees, and you can hear the wind whistling through those palm fronds. You can see the white caps off the bay, and then look right out in the distance. See that? A storm, bright red storm flag, way off in the distance, top. You can almost hear the wind coming through it. If you put your finger over that and look at that image, the blues don't look as blue, do they? And there's nothing about that red spot that makes it look more vibrant. So I stole that, and that I inverted it. So that blue star is the center of my composition. I even put it where Winslow Homer put it. Right? Come up with a new idea, Gary. And so, but you can see what it does. It makes those reds look more vivid. If you put your finger over it, take it away. Yeah, it almost glows. And I will tell you, and it also is one of the images I put on watercolor paper, which we'll talk about more. It just has this vibrance. It almost comes out of the wall. I just love the way it looks. So, I've been alluding, I think I've said it several times, that nebulas are like this are important because they're where stars are made, right? And this is an example of one of those. This is called the Rosette Nebula. The Rosette is one of the closest star-forming regions to our planet. And in this image, and you can think of it almost as like a star nursery, right? In this image, you can almost see the process. See those dark snaking channels? See it up there too? Those are star chambers. It's where gravity has compressed the material so intensely that the temperature rose. And the temperature rose to a point where fusion was initiated and a star is ignited. So the blue dots in the center of these images, those are brand new stars. Well, brand new, those are new stars. And the reason you see that open area in the center of the nebula is because when a star ignites, it releases this huge pulse of energy, a solar wind that blows everything else away. So it makes that open space. So why do I care so much about stars? Why does Jewel talk about stars? Yeah. It's because everything you know came from a star. The mountains, the trees, the ocean, all of us, the food on the back plate, that all came from a star because stars are where all the atoms that make us came from. They were started in a star. We wouldn't be here without a star. We are connected to the universe through stars. The universe isn't out there, it's in here. We are the result of stars. When I make these images, my intention is to help all of us feel connected to that. That's the point of it. We all do it in our own way. But the whole hope is that you feel a tighter connection to really what's home for you. It's the universe, the cosmos. And we haven't been able to see it until now, right? Put it in the hands of an artist to give you a new emotional connection to it. But this has been going on a while. There have been artists that have been giving us connections to the cosmos for over 1,000 years. And Jewel's going to talk about that.
Thank you, Gary. So, as Gary was just telling us and showing us, one of the things that makes his work so exciting is that it blends cutting-edge technology and science with these tried and true fine art techniques that enhance the aesthetic beauty and the emotional impact of these images and really connect us to what we're seeing. And while he's the first to accomplish this on such a grand and, literally cosmic scale, with access to the most precise astronomical data we are able to measure, he is also the latest in a very long line of astronomers who have used art as a vehicle to express the really deep and profound emotions that they feel when looking up at the sky and wondering about our place in it. So, as he was alluding to, there was a really, truly great example of this in the Persian astronomer poet Omar Khayyam, who lived during the 11th century and is credited with the creation of an updated version of the Persian calendar, which I think is still in use today in one form or another, but also with the creation of truly beautiful poetry and these verses that were compiled and translated in the mid-19th century by a man named Edward Fitzgerald into the Rubaiyat. And when I first looked at Gary's image of the Rosette Nebula, this perfect cosmic bloom, it really evoked in my mind the words of Quatrain 14 of the Rubaiyat that speak of this rose shedding its petals onto the floor of the garden. And it's really, if you think about it, exactly the same thing that is happening with these stars. As they grow here, they will explode and scatter all of their elements into our cosmic garden, eventually seeding the birth of new stars and eventually life, as everyone in this room is testament to. So, before I sing this song, I would just like to read Quatrain 14 of the Rubaiyat. It goes, "Look to the blowing rose about us, lo, laughing, she says, into the world I blow. At once the silken tassel of my purse tear, and its treasure on the garden throw." And so with those words in my heart and this image in my mind's eye, I wrote this next song really to connect with that experience of a cosmic blossom and attempting to capture what it would feel like through the eyes of a modern-day astrophotographer who's not only looking at the cosmos through a telescope, but also through the lens of a camera. This is Rosette. That's part of the song, you know. How strange that a shudder on my side briefly lifts the veil of night. How sweet that the stars' eternal dance can be captured in a glance, tales told by ancient light. And the rose says, laughing low, down into this world I blow, torn like the tassel of my purse from an old forgotten verse, treasure on the garden throne. Oh, that rose is a night blooming flower that unfolds in the wake of each hour, trailing its scent down to earth, till the dawn comes to herald its rebirth.
Let's look at another image. In this, I want to show you what I've learned as I've been exploring this. The image itself is a starting point. The display of that image really matters, how you show it. So this is the Rosette, as I put the image on a reflective photographic paper. And I did it because nebulas glow, and so a lot of the images you see are in reflective photographic paper. So when they're gallery lit, they almost seem backlit, which is really my intention. But I learned that sometimes, for some images in particular, there was other ways to show it that maybe revealed other features. And this is an example of that. This is the Rosette. You can see I've done something here. I took out all the stars. And I did it on purpose because there's details in the nebular structure that are really beautiful. And you can't see them when the stars are kind of clustered around. But I did another thing too. I printed it with archival pigments on watercolor paper. And the result is you see a texture you just don't see up here, don't you? And there's, the way the pigment comes into the paper, there's almost a transparency to the pigment. And that sort of speaks to the transparency of these veils of dust. So I like this look a lot. And as I've gone through this, I've experimented. Some images work, some don't, and it takes time to find out what the right way to show this is. And not surprisingly, depending on how it's displayed, you feel something different too. It hits you in a different way, or you see something different that you didn't see before. So I speak to that because I've been doing this for a few years now. This is brand new. If anybody wants to get into this, it's wide open. There's a lot of work to be done here. There's a lot of art to be made. I've also experimented with black and white in this medium as well. This is called Stardust, and it's over there, up there. This is that sort of chaotic area again, but now in black and white. Now, the advantage of going black and white with this is that you can really push the contrast, and the result of pushing the contrast is anybody knows Ansel Adams zones, from white to black, you can really have that steep gradient, and then the thing has real depth and power. If you walk up to this image, you almost have to put your hand into it. It's really quite cool. But the other thing that comes with an image like this, or this kind of a presentation, I find it kind of somber, I guess, and sometimes almost foreboding. And so I don't use it a lot, but for some images it really works. I just like the textures of it. Yeah, take a look at that one too when you're up standing around. Now, I'm gonna end here by talking about one more direction I've taken things that I think is worth pursuing. One of the things I realized as I was getting into this is you have most of these nebula I've taken, and you can see what I'm doing here. This is nature photography, and I'm crossing over into abstract art, aren't I? I'm taking real images, and I'm using, what abstract artists, I'm, stealing from Vasily Kandinsky is what I'm doing. And I'm using what people have done before to make these images. And you have this beautiful, glowing, colorful clouds, and they're always shrouded in this inky blackness. It seemed like a shame. And so it occurred to me, what would happen if I instead bathed it in light? So I made this image, and it's up there. Now take a look at it. Yeah. So you can see, all you see that's white here was black to begin with. And something amazing happened. In the black was all this fine texture and veils and lattice work of dust you couldn't see before. It was obscured by the inky blackness. And for me, it sort of suddenly became a watercolor. This is what a watercolor always looks like to me. I did a lot of watercolors. And so I thought this is very cool. The trick of it is that you can't just invert it. You got to do it. It's a really complex process, and it turns out it doesn't work for everything. Very few images in which it really works well. Another thing happened for me, and it started with this image. When I saw this, I didn't see the nebula. What I saw was an aerial of a rocky coast. It looked like I was over Big Sur, looking down, right? And you have the ocean offshore there, and you have, looks like a storm cloud blowing in, right? And then it occurred to me, wow, this isn't a 20-mile stretch of coastline. This is a ridge of dust making stars. It's 20 light years. And yet, I'm seeing it, and I'm finding it familiar. Why should I? Well, physics is physics. And so these structures and these, the way things appear to us, we do have a connection back to this, and it's easy to really enjoy it in that manner. Yeah. I'm going to end with two images. They're on the back wall. They're going up the stairs. This is the Heart and Soul Nebula, and this is one of those places where this technique really worked for me. Again, these are up in the night sky tonight as well. They're up every night for your whole life. These two objects that have been side by side for forever. You can see, look what happened here. It turned into a watercolor wash, right? Tropical colors. And for me, it almost looked like an earthy ring that was surrounding this iridescent pool of blue. Almost like atolls, tropical atolls up in the sky. Just absolutely beautiful and remarkable. So I think this image in particular, these images in particular, for me, really underscored a couple of things. First, there were the timelessness of all this, but also I think the eternity of love. This is how we look at things. And so you can see this is not traditional astrophotography, new. This is something different. And I'm exploring new ways to look at our cosmos, to connect with it. And I'm going to hand it to Jewel because she's doing the same thing. Jewel?
Thank you, Gary. These are two of my favorite images because looking at them, not just as an artist, but as a student of astronomy and religious studies, they really deeply evoke for me that embodied and emotional sense of connectedness in a way that I really didn't get from a traditional physics education, and which actually led me to study global religions and particularly mystical traditions from around the world that all tell us that we emerge from and return to the same great spirit or soul, while physics, on the other hand, emphasizes that we're all made up of the same material and that our hearts are all made up of the same matter. So I just think that these two images of Gary's really beautifully blend both the physical and spiritual sensibilities in a Hyros Gamos. The physical, by allowing us to directly observe the processes that are making up all of the materials in our bodies and our world. And the spiritual, as Gary mentioned, by just evoking that eternity of love and really bringing our minds to this infinite journey of evolution that we are on, not just as individuals in an isolated human community, but as an interconnected and integrated universal system. So this final song really focuses on those themes of our cosmic journey, and the woman who contributed most of the lyrics is here with us tonight, Charlene Garish, right here in the front row. Who's an incredible watercolor artist, and you should definitely go check out her work if you haven't before. But she was kind enough to send me her astronomical poetry, and I selected lyrics and images and wove them into this next song. And I'm also going to call up another incredible artist, Julie Kapili, my mother. And she's going to be singing at the Monterey Jazz Festival this year on the 28th, 4:30 at the Garden Stage, if anyone's going to be around. And this next song we're going to be singing, yeah. Oh, and maybe get closer.
Big lyrics.
I got somebody for you, Mama. Don't worry. But yes, this next song is called The Destiny of Man, and really focuses both on our inward journey that each of us has to take towards connecting with our source, as well as the outward journey that mankind is just beginning to embark on into the stars in this exciting new space age. So, The Destiny of Man.
Come away with me, I'll show you how it all began. This universal song that spells the destiny of man, where gravity provides the spark that moves the planets through their graceful arc. And so we set our course along the highway in the night, traveling into the unknown, illumined by a distant light that calls to me across this cosmic sea of infinite surprise. 1,000 galaxies unfolding right before my very eyes, searching through all space and time. We seek the truth, but all we find is eternal mystery. Don't you understand? It's not erase the destiny of man. Far away, perhaps one day we'll walk along the shore, leaving our footsteps in an unknown place we've never been before, and see that this is how it all began, like grains of sand along this cosmic shore. We drift forevermore.
Very well. What a blend of science and art. That's really going to be hard for us to ever top this way. But you will have inspired us to keep trying. But thank you all for being here.